Let's go back to the NFL, where, again, I mentioned revenge games are a term that's maybe too overused these days, especially when it comes to athletes. Maybe more of a reunion affair with Aaron Rodgers and Justin Fields as both quarterbacks balled out in a high-scoring affair at MetLife Stadium Sunday. But as we heard, perhaps it was more of a revenge game for Aaron Rodgers. Here he was after the game.
You spoke about the meeting with Aaron Glenn on McAfee a few months ago. Beating him, is there significance in that, since he basically told you to your face that he didn't think you were right for that team?
Yes, that's what he did.
So there's significance in beating him for you?
I was happy to beat everybody associated with the Jets.
We can't play that clip enough. Evan Washburn was on the sidelines with Ian Eagle and J.J. Watt joining us here on HQ Spotlight. So, Evan, great to be with you as always. There were some questions about what this Aaron Rodgers and Arthur Smith relationship was going to look like. What did it look like to you, 1 out of 17 this year?
Looked pretty good, Tommy. I think this is a marriage that at this point is very healthy. And I think all the speculation was more about the scheme fit for Aaron Rodgers. And he lent perspective to this with us when we spoke on Saturday night. It's a scheme, 12 personnel, so utilizing more tight ends, to try and speak in layman's terms, is not something, and more under center, that Aaron had spent a lot of time in his previous 20 seasons in the NFL. Not to say he hasn't been under center. He likes at times to do that. But again, it's a lot of new for a player at this stage in his career, is used to doing things a certain way. So I think that's what led to maybe some of the doubt and the speculation as to whether or not this would work. And even after the game, as Aaron and I spoke on the field, he gave an answer to a question about where this relationship is, and really spoke to just how much he appreciates it and doesn't understand why people would doubt it. And I think the fact that they were to be able to be this effective in week 1, when they haven't played in any live action up until this game against a quality defense, really speaks to what maybe the potential of this offense could be. Because they didn't run the ball well, Tommy. DK Metcalf had an impact, but only 4 catches, and he was sacked 4 times. So by no means was this a perfect outing for this offense, but they still put up north of 30 points and won a back-and-forth offensive-style game. So I think all signs are pointing in the right direction for these two guys that, as Aaron told us, are meshing very well. You think about it generationally, they're near the same age. Those things matter when you're trying to build chemistry on the fly in what could just be a 1-year opportunity.
Yeah, some of those questions answered again through just one game. We're not trying to overreact either way. Same thing goes with the defense, though, which we know how good and elite this Pittsburgh unit can be. But what concerns do you have, if any, after what you saw over the weekend?
Well, the fact that they couldn't stop the run. And I thought more about it, and I was thinking about the way Mike Tomlin addressed it with us at halftime and with me specifically, about just an inability to get off blocks and make a play, make a tackle. But, and we'll get into this when we talk about the Jets, it really in a lot of ways resembled what it's like facing an option-style offense for a college team. Or think back to when Lamar Jackson burst on the scene in 2019. What Tanner Engstrand and Justin Fields, more importantly, were able to do was really keep Pittsburgh on their heels in terms of stopping the run, and then that inevitably sets up the opportunities to make plays down the field with play action. It was a real sort of coming out party, I think, for Tanner Engstrand and for Justin Fields in this offense that is unique. I mean, we've seen run pass and option style, but they committed to it. It was a lot of downhill, and at times it felt like this Pittsburgh defense was trying to figure out where the ball was. And look, they made the plays down the stretch necessary, most notably Jalen Ramsey. But I do think that it would be an overreaction to panic about a defense that has so many All-Pros and Pro Bowlers because of a poor outing against what I think will be a unique style that's going to keep a lot of defensive players and coordinators up at night this season.
You brought up Jalen Ramsey. What did you learn about him and Mike Tomlin?
Well, this is one of, and kind of the nature of this segment going back a few years now, that empty the notebook. And as you know, Tommy, you've been on broadcast before. There's so much that we can't get into a broadcast because maybe the game doesn't take us there, or our game's as exciting as it was, and you're just worried about play to play, but Mike Tomlin told a phenomenal story about Jalen Ramsey, and it goes back to 2016 when they were in the pre-draft process. And Kevin Colbert and Mike Tomlin go down to Tallahassee to FSU's Pro Day. And it was customary for Mike Tomlin to take the draft prospect, the high-end draft prospect, out to dinner the night after or before his Pro Day. And they knew they weren't going to be able to pick Jalen Ramsey because he was going to go in the top 5. He ends up going 5 to Jacksonville. They were picking in the mid-20s. So they thought, well, we don't need to take him to dinner, even though we're excited to watch him work out tomorrow. He got a call from Jalen Ramsey's agent saying, hey, why aren't you guys taking him out to dinner? He wants to go to dinner with you and obviously Kevin Colbert, but probably more specifically Mike Tomlin. So Mike's like, all right, well, let's go to dinner. We'll get some food. And they end up hitting it off immediately. And they, as he put it, closed down the restaurant. And not the way you and I would close down a restaurant, probably having a few. It was in the corner just talking ball. And their obsession with, especially, secondary play, that's where Mike Tomlin's roots are on the defensive side of the ball. But that didn't mean they get to draft, and they end up taking Artie Burns late in the first round, and Jalen goes to Jacksonville. But Mike's always had his eye on Jalen Ramsey, and he's always wanted to be able to coach with him and have him on a team. And so now it finally comes to fruition this offseason. They trade for him. And then he makes that play. He made a few plays, and he made his impact with his personality on the game. But he makes that play late in the game. And I don't know, to me, that was that full circle thing where you wish you would have told that story in the broadcast, but there was no real room for it. But now we get to do it with you.
Yeah, no doubt. Great stuff there, and we're able to share with our viewers here in CBS Sports Network on a Monday afternoon. Before I let you go here, let's talk about the Jets. Why could this be a special year for Justin Fields, especially what we saw on display on Sunday?
Well, I teased it a little bit there. I may be more impressed with Justin Fields than any other aspect of that game, as well as Aaron played, as well as Jalen Ramsey played, the way that Chris Boswell was able to hit a 60-yarder. But I thought Justin Fields was the best player on the field in a lot of ways in that game. And it made me think of what Lamar did in 2019, where they tailored the entire offense to his skill set. And look, I don't expect Justin Fields to win the MVP this season or to rush for 1,200 and throw for 3,400. But if Tanner Engstrand and that staff, and obviously Aaron Glenn, who's leading the entire team, can commit to just doing everything that Justin Fields does well and not be afraid to run him and use him. Look, he's going to take some hits. He took some big shots yesterday, so that's always got to be kept in mind. But he is a big, strong athlete at the quarterback position. And I just think there's a potential for him to have a really special statistical season. I don't know what that'll mean in the wins and losses, Tommy, but that was as comfortable as he's looked since he's been a pro. I've done games of his in Chicago and last year in Pittsburgh. And if there's that level of commitment, and Breece Hall can do what he does, and then obviously Garrett Wilson at times when they do need to pass, because they still need to pass the ball. I just think there's a potential there for him if they fully commit to that unique style, because it really confuses defenses, especially the first time around. And you saw that yesterday with a really talented Pittsburgh defense. I think there's some potential for Justin Fields to finally realize some of the potential so many people saw him when they took him near the top of the first round there a few years ago in Chicago.
Yeah, you saw firsthand with the nice surprises of the weekend. Everyone was anticipating maybe a tighter, low-scoring game. It was a higher-scoring game. And wouldn't it be great if both quarterbacks ended up having a really nice season for their respective teams? Evan, certainly appreciate it. Thanks for emptying the notebook. We look forward to regular appearances here on HQ Spotlight. Quick note about where Evan will be in Nashville for Rams and Titans with Ian and JJ there coming up this week.